Okay, this is 4th grade lesson 73, and this is all about transformations. Okay, so what we're looking at is geometric transformations. There's a few vocabulary words we need to know as we start. One of them is orientation. Orientation, when it comes to geometric transformations and figures, orientation means its position. Okay, so if it says it changed its orientation, it changed its position. So in geometric figures, orientation means position. Okay, so usually I would do this on our with our geometric board on the smart board and things, but I'm going to do my best to show you what this looks like in a on just my board. So let's say I have this triangle here. If I change its orientation, I might move this section over along the bottom here, and then this one is going to come up this way, and this one will move over to the side like that. So it's the exact same thing, and if I turn it, it's going to match up to that. It's just been turned, so its orientation has changed. It's still congruent. Now remember what congruent means? Congruent means it's the same size and same shape. So it's the same size and same shape. And that's what we're looking at when we look at these transformations. We're going to look at same size, same shape. Well, we have a couple different vocabulary words, and our basic ideas, we use these words instead of these simple words. So I'm going to show you the movement, what the movement is called, and then what is its name in math, because we have specific names for different movements in math. Oh, that's kind of uneven under there, so we're just going to redo that. Okay, I want it nice and straight. So the movement, and then its name. And in fact, I'm going to use my ruler to right underneath that, okay? Because we're going to make a little chart to help us to know. So movement and name. And so we have 3 different movements and 3 different names. And I have little ways to help you remember which is which, especially when you have to write down, well, this is this or this is that. It can give you some easier ways to remember. All right, so let's put 3 boxes along here. We can do a smaller on that side and a little bit larger on the other side. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Well, okay. There's only 3 of them, but we'll have, I think we'll leave it. Okay. And I'm going to make that a little smoother in there. Alright. So this is the movement, and this is the name. Okay. So the movement and the name. Got a little bump there. Alright. So if we slide something, okay, slide would be if I took a triangle like this and I just moved it over to here. We call that sliding. It's just moving over in that direction. Or any direction. I can take it and move it down. I can take it and move it over. That's what we consider a slide. And that is called a translation. Translation. And I like to think of that slide. You haven't changed it, you just moved it over like that. So when you think of translating a word, we haven't changed it at all. We haven't changed the meaning. We haven't flipped it, moved it, that type of thing. All we're doing is sliding it into a different language, and we're translating it. So when we slide that word over into a different language, we just translate it, or translation. So the slide is the translation. Okay, the second one is a turn. When we turn an object, that would mean that it would stay the same at one point. So kind of like if I had a rectangle, let's say I had this rectangle here, and I'm going to turn it. I'm just going to take it and I'm going to move it around. So if I move that rectangle over here, there's one point it hasn't changed. That point has stayed the same. Yeah, it's hard to see. There we go. That point has stayed the same, and we just moved it over that way. We left it on that one point, and we turned it. And that turn is called a rotation. Rotation. And we can think of this, how we can remember that turn is because the earth turns or it rotates. So when we think of a rotation, we think of something turning. Like when the earth turns, it's rotating. And so rotation and turn mean the same thing. And that's that math word that we want. Rotation is a turn. A flip is what we call a reflection. And it is exactly just that, a reflection. Think about something that you see in a reflection in a mirror. A reflection in a mirror. If you had something like your hand, and let's say this is your hand, okay, just a real basic look for your hand. If you were to flip that, you would have your thumb over here, you would have your fingers going this way, and so that is that flip or that reflection. The reflection shows what you see in the mirror. Your left looks like your right looks like your left. So when we flip something, that's that reflection. We've gone from here and then flip it over to there. And that's what we'll see in different objects too. You can take different objects and make them into different positions and see, well, what does it look like if I flip it? What does it look like if I turn it? What does it look like when I slide it? Or in other words, translate, rotate, or reflect an item. So let's take a look at an item and reflect it. So here we have a pencil. Okay, I'm just going to draw a little pencil here. If I have this pencil and I'm going to reflect it, I'm going to make a reflection. So I want to think of it as flipping that over. When I flip that over, that means that the point is now going to be facing upward. Before it was facing downward. And my eraser is going to be at the bottom, whereas before the eraser was at the top. So that's what we would consider a reflection. That's that reflection. Okay? It's a reflection. If I take those same pencil, let me make that pencil again. Okay. We have that pencil. Okay, not the best, but okay, it's a pencil there. And now we want to, let's say we're going to slide it. We're going to slide it. I can slide it any direction. So this time I'm going to slide it like this. Okay. And of course, like I said before, if I were at school and working with you, we would use the Smartboard applications. So here we have a slide. See how it slid? It's translating. I translated it. So move from one to the other. Hasn't changed anything about it except that I didn't draw it that great. So this is a translation. Remember, it's the same thing. It just goes, you slide it into that different language. So that's a translation, translating it. The last one then that we haven't done yet is what? Hopefully at home you just said rotation. So we're going to do a rotation. So we're going to take our pencil and we're going to draw it again. And when you do a rotation, it doesn't matter which direction you go. I'm going to keep the pencil point the same point. So that little point's not going to change. As I move it around to the side or I move it over here, wherever I want to move it, I'm going to take that and I'm going to keep that pencil point in the same spot. I'm going to bring this out here, and then I'm going to draw that ending on it. And now when I move that over, it's keeping on that same point, so it's rotating, or it's a rotation. A lot of times we can find this, and sometimes we have both, a reflection and a rotation, or reflection and translation. It all depends on what you want to use. Sometimes it's fun to cut out shapes and then draw the outsides of them, and then flip them and draw it, or slide it and draw it, or turn it and draw it. And you can actually see what it looks like to have a rotation, a translation, or a reflection. That especially is helpful if you're trying to figure out something in your book and they say, is this a reflection or a translation or a rotation? If you trace it on a piece of paper and then move it around to see, oh, well, I flipped it, so it must be a reflection, or I rotated it, so it must be a rotation. That type of thing can also help you in figuring out what they are. So today's lesson, we looked at the orientation, the position of a geometric object. It's either going to slide and be a translation, turn, which is a rotation, or flip, which is a reflection. And that's the end of our lesson.